Hello, everybody, and again, welcome. I am Connor Kurpat, joined by the one and only
Robert DeFelice.
Let's get right into it. For those of you who don't know, I mean, you might not be keeping up with sports and everything that's going on, but I think even if you don't, you know that the Super Bowl is this weekend. And I think if you had told me before the season started that we'd be watching a Super Bowl matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams, I probably wouldn't have believed you. Now, I always like the Rams. I always think they had a good shot of making it deep. But the Bengals, I thought they were going to be a middle-of-the-pack team this year, certainly not a division champion, and certainly not a Super Bowl contender in the Super Bowl. So it's been really crazy, especially when you consider that they only won 4 games last year. They struggled on both sides of the ball, especially on that offensive line. That's kind of like what led to that Joe Burrow injury last year. I mean, they still are struggling this year. Nonetheless, Joe Burrow's finding a way to win games. It's been absolutely incredible to watch. And really, the key has been that they've found ways to win come playoff time. They've beaten great teams like the Chiefs, the Tennessee Titans. They beat the Raiders early on. They beat some really good teams. So tell me, Rob, how do you feel about this matchup and who you like?
I'm actually pretty excited about it. You know, I'm a big fan of the Bengals this year. I just love, the underdog type of story, so it's been super exciting to watch. I'm a big Joe Shiesty kind of guy. And you can definitely see some of the weaknesses that are still showing with the Bengals. You know, the offensive line still giving up a ton of sacks even in the playoffs, which you can't be doing that come playoff time. And so you can see that there's still some holes there, and there's going to be some struggles when you're going against Aaron Donald and Von Miller at the same time. So it'll be a little tough for them, but if anyone can get it done in that kind of situation, it's going to be the Bengals and Burrow and the team they've been able to put together this year. And for the Rams, they're at home. They're going to have their home crowd for the most part. They know the stadium, which is a huge advantage like that. They've been there before. They've been there recently. Mm-hmm. Most of their players are experienced. So I'm just excited for a good game. I'm a Broncos fan, so this game doesn't really have a huge impact on my life, but as a sports fan, it'll just be exciting to watch. So I'm excited.
Me too. I feel like it's one of the first Super Bowls in a long time that I could watch and not care who wins. Usually I'd be rooting against Tom Brady or the Chiefs, and that's all the Super Bowl's been for the past few years. So I'm happy that finally they're both not in it. I can actually just sit back and relax and enjoy Joe Burrow, who I love, and Matt Stafford. So,
absolutely. Moving on, this past weekend we had the NFL Pro Bowl where the game's best players come together to showcase their talent. But in recent years, players really haven't taken it as seriously. They don't want to risk injury or anything like that. So they kind of lay it back and it becomes a bit of a two-hand touch type of game. But this past weekend at the Pro Bowl, there were more headlights coming out of it than just some boring game. Saints running back Alvin Kamara got in a scuffle, which come to find out was actually a little bit more of a slaughter by Kamara, who was at a club and brutally beat another patron at the club, leaving him with multiple injuries that sent him to the hospital for a few days. And then immediately following the game, Kamara was actually arrested, and now he's facing some serious time as due process plays out, which then leads to the conversation that, he's the 4th player in the NFL this season to be arrested in Vegas. The Raiders have their fair share of convicts because, the Raiders are the Raiders. But, Henry Ruggs, everyone knows that situation, the DUI that resulted in the tragic loss of a life. Nate Hobbs was also arrested for a DUI closer to the tail end of the season. And then Damon Arnette was arrested for, criminal threatening while waving a gun on social media. So, what is it with Vegas, just that city as a whole, and is that a concern, and what's the lesson here for players that it needs to be learned?
Yeah, first of all, you're throwing some slander at my Raiders, but I get it. I'm not gonna be mad at it. You're a Broncos fan. I totally get it. But talking about this subject here, I've seen a lot of debates all online on Twitter and everything like that discussing, is it Vegas that's the problem? Is having a professional sports team in Las Vegas a serious issue? And that makes me beg the question of: are there bars? Are there places to party in other cities? Places like New York City, L.A., down in Dallas. There's places to party anywhere you go. It's just a matter of these players going to places in Vegas where I think that they shouldn't be going to, or just not being responsible. I mean, with the Henry Ruggs situation, there's no reason why he couldn't call an Uber. There's no reason why he couldn't have called one of his fellow players to take him home. I mean, at least with Nate Hobbs, I know Nate Hobbs got a DUI. I think it ended up being that he wasn't technically at the blood alcohol level content, and he actually was parked in a parking lot. But nonetheless, I mean, that's no excuse to get in a vehicle intoxicated. And I mean, with Damon Arnette, waving his gun around, I think really, it just comes down to these players need to be responsible adults. They are all adults. They are all, in this professional league where they're constantly plastered on all these different social media platforms, all these different magazines, TV shows, all these things. They're all over everything, and they have to take the responsibility not only to protect themselves and their team, but they also have to protect others. I mean, we see with the Henry Ruggs situation. I mean, he killed a woman and her dog. You're putting not only your own lives at risk, you're putting the lives of others at risk. So it's just about knowing for these players that they have a responsibility to do the right thing. Just because they have millions of dollars doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want and that they're invincible. They have to take the right precautions, whether it's in Vegas, whether it's in Cincinnati, LA, New York. They got to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But on another note, let's talk some MLB. Rob Manfred is addressing the media Thursday, and it's probably going to be that spring training is delayed, which is something that nobody wants. The players also denied earlier in the week a federal mediator that the MLB had called for. So, Rob, that makes me want to ask you, is this season going to start on time? Because it's looking more and more improbable each day. And I want to get your opinion. Who's in the right in this situation?
I really don't think at this point that it's going to start on time. I think there's still so much that needs to be figured out between the players and the MLB, and it's not going to get done by the season starting time. It's going to be delayed. How much it gets delayed is going to be the real question here. And honestly, I'm kind of on the side of the players in this situation. I think in today's day and age, there's so much power to the players, especially in other leagues. You look at like the NBA, where the players have so much power and they're in a better position. And I think the MLB players are just sick of the treatment that they've been getting. They're sick of the lack of power that they have in their sport. And especially with the MLB's minor to major league transfer is something that's unique to baseball. And that, honestly, the MLB hasn't been doing a very good job of handling it in the past few years. And so there's change that needs to be made. And at this point, I'm on the side of the players.
Yeah, I'm going to completely agree with you there. I am definitely also on the side of the players as well. A lot of people like to say, oh, these MLB players are getting paid millions of dollars, so what do they have to complain about? Well, sure, some of the big names are guys like Mike Trout, Max Scherzer, but, I mean, you look at these guys in the minors, they're making basically minimum wage. Not only that, they're not getting proper housing. Their food provisions, their dietary stuff that the teams provide is not good at all. So I think these players, not only do they need to have better accommodations for themselves in the minor leagues, but as far as contracts goes, I mean, these guys are being held on a contract they signed when they were, 19, 20 years old, and they're being held onto that contract until they're 30, not making any money, even though their play is good enough to warrant a bigger contract. We see that in the NFL, these guys are only on a drafted contract for 3, 4, 5 years. These MLB, I mean, there's no telling, there's no rule almost to stop these guys from getting utilized when they should be getting a better contract. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm on the side of the players.
Absolutely. And should be interesting moving forward to see the type of agreements they come to and when it actually gets done to see it get done. Because, I don't want to miss out on any baseball. I don't know about you.
No, definitely don't.
Moving forward, the great weekend of sports with the Super Bowl actually kicks off on Saturday with a different sport over in the UFC. I'm a big UFC guy myself. I don't know about you, Connor. But we got a fantastic card coming up on Saturday. Israel Adesanya taking on Robert Whittaker for the middleweight title. This is actually the second meeting between the two of them. The first one, Adesanya won in a second-round knockout. And then on the co-main event, we have Derek Lewis fighting Tai Tuivasa, who are arguably two of the funniest guys to watch around the octagon. Derek Henry is a interviewing superstar with all of his hot takes and the things that he says pretty much every fight. And then you have Tai, who will drink a beer out of just about anyone's shoe. And he even said during the press conference yesterday, because I don't know if you saw it, but the last fight, Derek Lewis actually removed his cup and threw it into the audience. He said that he would drink a beer out of Derek Lewis's cup.
Wow.
To which Derek Lewis called him nasty. So it should be an interesting matchup between the two of them. And beyond the shenanigans, both of them are powerful heavyweights. They both have that one-punch knockout kind of power. So it's going to be a very, very entertaining fight between them both in the octagon and out of the octagon. So what do you think? We're going to see any shenanigans? And what are your picks for this card?
Yeah, I hope we do see some shenanigans, especially if Tuivasa actually does win and drinks out of a shoe, or he drinks out of Derek Lewis's cup. I mean, I have no idea. But I hope that does happen, just for the pure entertainment factor of it. As for picks go, I think the big matchup, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker, I think Adesanya is going to take it home again. I know Adesanya lost when he tried to become a double champ. This is kind of like his first fight since, but I mean, he beat Whittaker the first time, beat him pretty good. I think that even though Whittaker's a great fighter, I'm not taking anything away from Robert Whittaker. I still think that Adesanya's striking is too precise. It's too ridiculous. The guy does not miss his punches. He has a good amount of power in each punch. The way he's able to use his legs, move his body, he's very fluid. I know he calls himself the last style bender, and it's true. It's a good title for him because the way he's able to move and manipulate his body to land with exact precision is just incredible to watch. There are very few people that can beat him, I think, especially in the weight class he's in. I think the only way you can beat him is like how he lost when he went to become the double champ, taking him to the ground, using body weight to control him, not letting him get separation and length. That's how he lost last time. I think that if Whittaker wants to win, he's going to have to do that as well. But yeah, I think Adesanya is going to definitely win that matchup. And as far as the other matchup, I think that's a toss-up either way. I just really hope it ends with Tuivasa drinking out of a Derek Lewis's cup, really.
Or Derek Lewis yelling some body parts that are hot or some bathroom break needs.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
of the two. It should be an interesting card for sure. Coming up next, we had the clip of the week where Trevor Zegras had a Zegros goal.
Well, I like what you did there. And I will agree. He had one of the best goals I think I've ever seen. It's absolutely incredible. And then after the clip of the week, we're going to cut right to Prove Your Point. Very special episode right there.
There goes 58.
He was blindfolded.
So 58 is 11 more than Kaprizov. The mascots were a bit late, Bush. Here come the balls.
I think so. I think you're right.
That was unreal.
Welcome back to another very special edition of Prove Your Point, the game show where you have to prove to me that your stance on the debate topic is correct. Joining me today, first we got a returner, been on the show multiple times. We've got Zach. Zach, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. You know, this is my time to shine. I like the debate show. Connor's not in the judge's seat, so I got a shot tonight.
Absolutely. And then we got a newcomer on the show tonight. Very happy to have her here. Julia, welcome to the show. First
Thank
time.
you
How
so
you feeling?
much. I'm super excited.
Happy to hear it.
Yes.
All right, and with that, let's get into it. So the first topic, got to address the elephant in the room. It's this Sunday. Who's winning the Super Bowl? I think I know your side, Julia, so we're going to start with you.
I mean, it's obviously the Bengals. There's no doubt about it. They haven't won a playoff since 91, and they haven't been in a Super Bowl since 89. They've never won a Super Bowl before. I really think that this is their time to shine. Joe Burrow, we've seen him. I mean, you can't look on Instagram without seeing him everywhere. And they're just having a fantastic season. I mean, I really think that it was symbolic of Brady stepping down, Burrow rising up. I mean, they beat the Chiefs it was 21-3, came back in overtime 27-24. That's some Brady type stuff right there. I mean, really, I think it's the season of the underdog. I think they're ready. It's comeback season, baby. I'm really excited.
And Jamar Chase is having a great season as well, not receiving core as a whole, like T. Higgins and all of them. Very valid points there. Over to you, Zach.
Well, I'm going with the Rams. Let me just say, this is the first Super Bowl I can ever remember where I like both teams playing, so I wouldn't be mad if the Bengals won. I may even root for them, but the Rams are the better team. In the game against Tennessee, the Bengals' offensive line gave up 9 sacks. The Bengals' offensive line is one of the worst in the league, and they're playing the Rams' defensive line, who might be the best in the league. Aaron Donald is a mismatch nightmare, and you put a bunch of scrubs on the offensive line in front of him, he's going to blow right through it. They got the defense is loaded on all 3 levels. They got Jalen Ramsey in the back end. They got Donald up front. They got a bunch of other studs up front, and Leonard Floyd to rush passer. And then on offense, everyone talks about Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Joe Cool. California Matt has been waiting for this moment for his whole life. He's an underdog story, 13 years in Detroit. He's coming up. He's probably been the postseason MVP so far. He sent Tom Brady into retirement. I don't think the stage is too big for him. Playing at home in L.A., it's California Matt's time.
Well, we'll see if the saying's true that you can take the man out of Detroit, but you can't take the Detroit out of the man. We'll see if it's true on Sunday. Both great points. Great first round. It's very tough. Trying to put all my bias aside. I'm going to have to give this first round to Julia and say, the Bengals, I agree with her. It's their year. Yeah, it's Joe Shiesty, but it's Joe Shiesty time, and that's all you got to say.
I'm good with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I'm good.
Moving on, our next topic, still Super Bowl related, but Who do we think in this Super Bowl is under the most pressure? Zach, we're going to start with you this time.
The person in the Super Bowl under the most pressure is Rams coach Sean McVay. Everybody talks about how Sean McVay is regarded right after Belichick as the best coach in the league. Well, right now, Sean McVay, he's got troubles in that he's going up against his assistant. He groomed Zach Taylor for this moment, Bengals coach. Everyone talks about how it's McVay's time. They went all in. They put everything they had into this year. First round picks, they haven't picked since 2016. They won't pick until at least 2023 after these trades. All the chips were in for this moment, and he has to prove. He's going up against his assistant. He can't be training the next level of coaches to take over. All these coaches, everybody wants the next Sean McVay. Well, Sean McVay has to be the real Sean McVay and actually deliver a title first.
All right. And, there's also the pressure that he's already been to one and
It is true.
absolutely choked, only
That is
put it
true.
up 3
Yeah.
points against the Patriots. Over to you, Julia. Who do you think is under the most pressure?
I would have to say Matt Stafford, the QB for the Rams. I mean, honestly, I'd be a little nervous if I was going up against Joe Burrow and you can't literally. I don't see Matt Stafford on Instagram with all these memes about him. I really don't. I mean, Joe Burrow is the next Tom Brady without a doubt. I mean, I would be really, really nervous if I were him. It's just we've seen how phenomenal of a season the Bengals have had. I mean, I just don't think that he has a chance against Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I agree, and it's his first opportunity at the big stage.
Exactly.
Never been there with Detroit.
He's been in for 12 years, and this is Burrow's second year, and look how much he's done.
Yeah, some may think it's now or never for Stafford, so that
Exactly.
pressure might be there.
It's so true.
Again, both great points. We've got good contestants tonight, but unfortunately, Julie, I'm going to have to give this round to Zach. I think he's right. McVay is definitely in the spotlight here, and a lot of questions will start being asked if he makes it to 2 Super Bowls and still can yet to get that finish.
Can't lose the Super Bowl at home. Cannot lose the
Cannot
Super
do
Bowl
it.
at home.
And for our last topic, moving away from football a little bit, going into basketball, kind of a broader question here, but we're approaching a little past the midway point in the NBA season and everything like that. Some pictures are starting to come together. The trade deadline's coming up. Who do we think closing out this back end of the season is the best team in the NBA? Julia, we'll start with you.
I would say the Phoenix Suns. I mean, Devin Booker has had an amazing season. He's really taken after his father, Melvin. I mean, he wasn't a first-round pick in the NBA 2015 draft for nothing. He's really keeping the Suns up right now. He's leading the team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They don't get enough credit. I mean, it's just, honestly, they're underrated, and he's just holding them up right now. It's just they're having a phenomenal season.
Yeah, and I think they're very underrated as well. No
Yeah.
one's talking about the fact that they have the best record in the NBA right now, and
It's the season of underdogs.
you don't see anything about them. Zach, over to you.
Well, it's closing time right now. It's time for me to take this debate home. Just like how the Milwaukee Bucks closed against the Phoenix Suns last year in the NBA Finals. The Bucks are back this year. If you watched them last night, I know the Lakers are down, but the show Giannis put on 44 points and 15 boards last night. Giannis could be the MVP every year. There's a little voter fatigue not to. Right now, if you look at him, he's as good of a candidate to be that. Drew Holiday is playing phenomenal. He's one of the best defenders in basketball. Chris Middleton's an all-star again. The big three right there, you could argue, is maybe the best big three in basketball right now with the Nets whole debacle. And if you look at the East, their path there, they beat the Heat last year. They swept them out. The Nets look like they're a train wreck. The Bulls are new. They're the only proven team. And then when they get to the finals, if they have to play the Suns or Warriors, Giannis, he's done it. Immaculate performance in the finals last year. He will close again, and he's got the help of some trusted sidekicks who have previously delivered and will absolutely deliver again with a back-to-back titles from Milwaukee. Fear the deer, baby.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think, with the Nets turmoil, to think that a Milwaukee big three is bigger than Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant right now.
They don't get the press, but they got the numbers.
Kind of crazy to think about. Man, what a show we've had today. This is tough. It comes down to the wire here, this last question. Great arguments, both sides. But I think on this one, I'm going to have to give it to Zach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you should. It's good for me to win one of these. I finally have an impartial judge up here who lets me win. The Las Vegas Raiders are a little bad, so I give Connor a hard time about it, so I can never get a win. But, we got an impartial Rob. It was a good fight, but I'm just the closer. I just come in and get it done.
How are you feeling, Julia? First time on the show, couldn't get the job done.
I mean, I felt like I said what I had to say, and I'm excited to see the Bengals, kick the Rams' butt on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Hope to see you again on the
Yes,
show
I'll
sometime
be
soon.
back.
Coming up next, we have the Red Fox Report, and it's a very special edition because it's a crossover episode with Jonathan from Center Field.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. And we're here to talk to you about Marist Sports, the Red Fox Report. Today, I have the absolute honor to be joined by none other than Center Field's own Jonathan Kinane. Jonathan, how do you feel to be on the show tonight?
Absolute honor to be here, Connor. I'm so happy you blessed me with the invite.
Oh, I bless you with the invite, of course. It's great to have you here, Jonathan. For those of you who don't know, Jonathan is one of the very best in Marist Center Field. He covers Marist women's basketball at all times, as well as writes a ton of other stuff. I mean, if you want to go look at Center Field, you scroll down the site, Jonathan's name is going to come up multiple times on there. So if you've seen Center Field, you've seen Jonathan's work, I assure you. And if you haven't seen his work, be sure to check it out.
Well, Connor, I know we have masks on, but I assure you I am blushing under this mask.
No, now you're making me blush. I mean, come on now. All right, but Jonathan, I know you cover women's basketball, but we're going to start out with men's basketball, if that's okay with you. I know you keep up with them. They're 9-13 right now. Tell me, what is going on with that team?
Well, I think I'm guilty of having high expectations for this team. They came in, they were picked third in the MAC preseason poll. And we heard rumblings of these star freshmen, Jao Atuka and Noah Harris. And obviously, Atuka's become, probably the freshman of the year front runner in the MAC. They've both been great, but, the team, not so much. They're kind of treading water for a while. They were, winning a game, losing a game. They came into MAC play right around 500. They played Iona close twice, which is a big deal, Iona and Rick Pitino. So you thought, okay, if this team can play with Iona, then they should be able to beat a lot of other teams in the MAC. But they're 9-13 right now, and that's only because they thrashed a pretty good team in Monmouth last night. But they'd been on a really bad streak. They'd lost 7 out of 8 going into that, and they're one of those teams that just they kill you to watch because all of the losses are close. Whether they come back from a big deficit, whether they have a lead, they just find ways to lose. They're one of those teams. And last 7 of 8 losses have all come, or 6 of those have come by 7 points or less, which shows just how much trouble this team has had closing. And Atuka, he's the best player to come through Marist, best prospect to come through Marist in a really long time. I'm talking a really long time. He's incredible to watch, and so is sophomore Ricardo Wright. And they play the guards. They're this team's established backcourt now, and they both score, but they also both need the ball in their hands. Yeah. Which when you have 2 ball dominant guards, it's a worry about how much does the ball move. And sometimes there's stagnation on offense. They don't pass. They'll dribble in, Jao Atuka will put his head down and go to the rim, and that works a lot of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. And, Wright will try to, break someone down off the dribble and take a step back, and those only go in so often. So, they get cold down the stretch, and they have one of the lowest assist rates in D1, which, that has something to do with it. And they won yesterday. They really moved the ball. But, and I think there's still hope for them. They're 9-13, like we said, which isn't the best record, but when you beat Monmouth, a team that is picked second in the MAC by a combined 61 points, you have talent. And the back half of their schedule isn't bad at all. I mean, a lot of teams under 500, a lot of teams they've either played close or beat. So they could have something to say coming down the stretch. And they could make a run in Atlantic City. There's definitely still hope for them.
Yeah, I definitely think the big thing for them is just finding ways to finish games. With so many close games and dropping so many of them, I mean, their record could look a whole lot different if they did find ways to finish those games. And I mean, like you said, with a guy like Jao Atuka, I mean, he's one of the best players Marist has had in a very, very long time, since the days of yore, really. Yeah. Back when Marist basketball was actually good.
We're talking about I don't want to overemphasize here, but we might be talking about the Rick Smits days, or not far from him. He's the real deal.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there. He is the real deal, and it's so great. I just hope that Marist has the ability to continue to retain him, because I know Marist has a problem with losing people, transferring to bigger schools, and that could be a serious problem that Marist might have to look into when it comes to retaining some of their really good prospects that they have.
Especially with the transfer portal now.
Exactly.
That's just whole nother can of worms. Like, you got to wonder at the end of the season, like, what's his Instagram DMs going to look like? Is it going to be just coach from A school, B school, you know? It's going to be crazy. So they really need to prioritize keeping him.
Yeah, they're going to have to work hard, hunker down, and try to keep him. And but that makes me also wonder with, to look at Marist women's basketball and compare it to the men's team. I don't think, if you told me in the beginning of the year that the Marist women's basketball team was going to have a worse record than the men, I would not have believed you, especially with the amount of success they've had under Georges. But now, I mean, they're sitting at a really tough record, 3-8. They have not been doing well. I know they've lost a lot of people to injuries and COVID, and it's been a really tough way about it. So, Jonathan, make this make sense. Why is this team struggling so much this year?
Well, I mean, going into the season, this is a team that ran the table in the MAC pretty much last year. The year before that, they won 26 games before COVID shut down their season. And Georges has had, he's made more NCAA tournaments than a lot of people can count. He's the real deal. And the fact that this team is 6-14 on the season shows how tough it's been. And this team's been facing injuries and depletion the whole way. And some of it we didn't see coming. Like, we knew the seniors from last year, Allie Best and Willow Duffel, were going to leave. What we didn't know is that 6'4" freshman Caitlin Weimer, who had a huge year last year, she's just, you go at her, she blocks your shot, she grabs the rebound, she scores in the post, she does all that. She transferred to Boston U. Sarah Barcelo, she had 13 points last year and was slated to come back this season. She's not with the team. And Trinasia Kennedy, who, the heart and soul of the team pretty much, was hampered with off-season surgery and didn't come back until MAC play. So they were an inexperienced team coming into the season, when you look at the makeup of the roster. Like, they had, a star newcomer in Kiara Fisher, who is a point guard. She transferred in from Syracuse. And, she was inconsistent at times, but she was playing pretty well. And then she gets hurt a couple weeks after Kennedy comes back. So this team's never been at full strength. And it's hard to win. It's hard to win games like that. And now they're in a position where this is the worst start Georges has had in his 20 seasons. They play hard on defense. They fight. They guard really well. But when you're not scoring, this team scores 52 points a game, and 52 points a game over 40 minutes. Just do the math there. That's last in the MAC and near last in D1. And it comes back to the inexperience. Because you have freshmen and sophomores who have never really played a college road game before. That's something Georges harped on. Sophomores affected with the pandemic, freshmen, it's a whole new environment. But it's just a really tough spot. And Georges points out that this team practices shooting more than any he's had, and they just can't make a shot, which is really frustrating because they get good looks. They run good stuff on offense, and it just doesn't go in. And basketball is a very complex game, but if you make shots, you win.
Right.
And they just don't make shots. I mean, there's still time to improve. There's still time. When you're in a small conference like the MAC, it's all about peaking. It's all about peaking in March. Can you be playing your best basketball in March? And that's something they can do, but is their best basketball good enough? That's it was pretty much for the rest of Georges' tenure, but it might not be this year, and this might end up being the losingest team in the Georges era if things really go wrong. I mean, they're in Buffalo this weekend playing Niagara and Canisius, and if they've beaten both those teams earlier in the season, that could spark something. But they need something. They need some luck.
Yeah, and I mean, just a couple things you mentioned. I mean, with Caitlin Weimer, huge loss there. I mean, she was an absolute star for the team last year. A huge presence underneath the rim, a board machine through and through. Yes. I mean, she was an incredible presence last year for the team. And I mean, I think you mentioned how the team with their practicing shooting, yet they can't shoot. I think You said how much of a struggle that is for Georgia's. I mean, it's got to be a struggle to watch as well. This team goes for multiple minutes where they don't score. They can't put up any points. And it's not like they're getting completely outscored in those minutes. There's times where the other teams are in those droughts too. And they just can't find ways to put the ball in the net. They can't make it just all come together when it really counts. And I mean, I think you bring up a great point, as in, can they make their best basketball happen in March? And I just don't see it. I just don't see this team going anywhere that far with the way that they've played thus far, and with how much they've suffered as far as injuries, missed time. I think this team has never had the chance to really gel. They're playmakers, for that matter, I mean. And yeah, it's just a big struggle. And with all that in mind, I mean, you have Brian Georges, who's suffering one of the worst seasons he's ever had here, could be the worst, and John Dunn, who's been struggling with mediocrity, never really been able to get past that point and put together a really winning team. I have a question for you, purely speculative here, but what do you see happening first? John Dunn being fired from his position, or Brian Georges retiring from his position? Purely speculative.
Well,
just give it to me.
That's a great question, Connor.
Yeah.
And first we got to understand that where Dunn and Georges sit couldn't be any further apart. Because Georges has a lifetime contract if he wants it. That's not the case. His contract ends after this season, and he could still, there's still plenty of time to renew it. But he has a successor in place in Aaron Dowdy, and that's like a strong thing. Like whenever he wants to step down, she'll be there. So it comes down to, is Dunn going to get fired before Georges, and before Georges retires? And I think, it's a great question. I'll throw caution to the wind. I'll say Dunn turns it around. Okay. He has the talent. He has the talent on the roster to turn it around. And I'll say Georges retires in the next year or two. I think he's getting to that point where he's ready to go. So I'll say, and this is a gamble, and if Brian Georges is watching this, he will undoubtedly roast me for what I'm saying. But I'll say Georges retires before Dunn gets fired.
Wow, bold take, hot take, but I think you're right. I do think that Dunn has the talent right now to kind of turn it around, steer the ship in the right direction, but I think Georges right now, the fact that he hasn't renewed his contract yet, I think it's a little bit telling of the state of mind he might be in. But Jonathan, that's kind of all I had for you. That's everything I wanted to run through with you, so I hope you had a good time. I had a blast. I expect you to come on again, though.
Oof.
Is that something you could do?
I will be here.
Right.
You know where I am. You know where to find me.
That's good. That's good to know. And I just want to know, have you been bitten by the bug?
I see why you guys like this.
Okay, good.
This is fun stuff.
That's what I like to hear. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on Halftime on the Hudson, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.